By the time the third name surfaced, the pattern no longer felt accidental. Deputy Treasury Counsel Martin Greer collapsed in a private conference room during a scheduled compliance briefing. No struggle. No raised voices. No medical history suggesting imminent risk. Preliminary statement. Acute cardiac failure. The wording felt familiar, measured, concise, closed. The system had already decided how the story would be told. Greer's role was not ceremonial. He oversaw regulatory exposure reviews tied to interagency financial transfers. His office had recently flagged irregular reporting, language in several cross-department contracts. Nothing criminal, just inconsistent categorization. He had scheduled a follow-up session. That session never happened. Instead, his department issued condolences, then silence. I added his name to the wall. Harrow, Vail, Greer, 3 agencies. 3 different functions. Infrastructure. Commerce. Treasury. At first glance, unrelated. But when I overlaid vendor disclosures, the alignment sharpened. Argent Strategic Advisory had active advisory agreements with all 3 offices within 6 months of each outcome. The service categories varied. Discretionary. Resolution services. Executive continuity planning. Strategic exposure. Mitigation. Different labels. Identical cadence. That was not diversification. That was compartmentalization. I requested Treasury's external consulting disclosures. The file arrived partially redacted. Sections. Marked Confidential Advisory Framework. Framework. Suggests structure. Structure suggests repeatability. Repeatability. Suggests intent. I compared language across contracts. Certain phrases repeated verbatim. Outcome. Stabilization. Continuity assurance. Exposure threshold. Assessment. Threshold again. 2 days later, a mid-level analyst from Treasury contacted me anonymously. They don't decide outcomes, he said. They evaluate inevitabilities. If exposure crosses internal tolerance limits, a containment protocol activates. Who defines tolerance? Not the public. There was a metric. And once that metric tipped, the system moved. I returned to the insurance riders. Event finalization support. Activation timestamps. Aligned closely with personnel transitions. In Greer's case, the rider had been expanded 2 weeks before his death. Insurance does not expand without assessment. Assessment does not occur without data. Data does not appear without monitoring. That was surveillance of exposure. Not surveillance of individuals. I began mapping financial flows tied to consulting renewals. In each case, Argent's contracts were extended shortly after the resolution. Expanded scope. Increased access. Outcome followed by expansion. That suggested reward, not penalty. Late one evening, I received a sealed internal review summary. Title: Executive Risk Escalation Matrix. Columns labeled Exposure Vector, Public Impact Probability, Stability Disruption Index, Recommended Containment, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier Terminal. Terminal was not defined. The document referenced irreversible Resolution. Language shapes legality. Irreversible resolution is not a crime. It is an outcome. The next morning, my building access credentials were flagged again. Temporary system. Maintenance. Resolved within minutes. Small. Disruptions. Subtle reminders. I overlaid the risk escalation. Matrix with public timelines. Harrows. Memo triggered market speculation. Veils. Audit threatened trade negotiations. Greers. Review flagged accounting inconsistencies. Each case involved potential systemic disruption. If exposure threatened structural continuity, containment activated. Containment. Followed tier logic. Tier 1 resulted in advisory language. Shifts. Tier 2 resulted in administrative exits. Tier 3 correlated with sudden medical events. Tier terminal was rare, but present. The pattern was calibrated. Not emotional. 3 names. 3. ESCALATIONS. All preceded by exposure assessments. No manifesto. No villain. Just institutional math. I opened the folder labeled threshold. I created a subfolder. Tier logic. Because beneath the pattern was calculation. If disruption risk exceeded narrative tolerance, escalation moved upward, and once escalation reached irreversible resolution, the system reset. Rear was not an exception. He was. Progression. The third name did not expand the mystery. It clarified it. This was not chaos management. It was outcome. Engineering. And engineering implies design.